Today on the nutrition segment, we're going to be discussing nutrition and diarrhea. The things to eat, what not to eat, and all of that. And we've been joined in the studio by Esther Obingmensa, who is the opulent dietitian and a co-founder of Zen Diet Consults. Esther, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm
Good morning.
Fantastic. It's good to have you here again. All right. Now, let's get right into it.
Yeah.
Diarrhea. What is it? What do we need to know about it? And how does nutrition impact diarrhea?
All right. A very good morning to everyone. Is it Eid al-Fitr?
Yes.
Is it the Fitr?
Yes.
All right. So happy Eid al-Fitr to our Muslim friends and family. All right. When it comes to diarrhea, I made a statement some time ago. I want to clarify that concerning the guts and then probiotics. I think I made mention of that the guts are the live bacteria found in the intestine, which is absolutely not the correct thing. It's actually the guts, actually the gastrointestinal tract. That's from the mouth down through to the anus. Just because today's topic is going to pertain to that, I just want to clarify that. And the probiotics are actually the live bacteria that are found in some foods or some supplements that could help with regards to any issues in the large intestine. All right, so back to diarrhea. I think diarrhea is one of the conditions that most people underrate. But according to the World Health Organization, it's this is the second leading cause of death in children under 5. Wow. So that's how serious diarrhea can be. And we have types of diarrhea. But before that, it's basically the passing of loose or watery stools more than 3 times in a day. That could affect your daily activity, which is quite uncomfortable. On a regular day, your stool should be either semi-solid, not necessarily. If it's solid, it means that you're heading towards the constipation. And if it's too watery or it's too liquid, then we are at the diarrhea stage. So basically, when you're passing a stool that is watery more than 3 times in a day, then we could diagnose you of diarrhea. But we have types of diarrhea. We have the acute watery diarrhea. We have the dysentery one that contains blood. So if you realize that you start passing a stool that contains blood, then there is an alarm. And we have the persistent diarrhea. It also contains blood, but with that, it's more than 2 weeks. For the acute one, could be within hours to days. The dysentery one could also be hours to days, which has blood in it. But with the persistent one, that's where it's very serious, because for more than 2 weeks, it means that you are really losing a lot, because with watery stool, it means that you are losing some fluids in there, and you're also losing some electrolytes as well. If you talk about electrolytes, sodium, potassium, these are minerals that are found, basically absorbed in the large intestine. So during the diarrhea season, you tend to lose these electrolytes or these minerals, which are very essential to our growth and development. So with you losing these, it poses you to a lot of conditions, or puts you at risk, which can lead to death, as I made mention earlier on. Yes. When it comes to management, I made mention of watery, so you are losing fluids, and so it means that we need to replace these fluids and these electrolytes, which are very, very important.
So that means you need to drink more water when you have diarrhea.
Exactly.
But most times people actually think it's the opposite, because they feel like, okay, yes, I'm passing, watery, so why don't I eat bread?
So if I drink water, I'll just make more water come
Exactly.
out.
So why don't I eat bread? Why don't I eat very solid food? Does that help?
Not necessarily. If you are talking about solid, it should be refined. We don't want the ones that are high in fiber. And you need to replace the fluids, because you are losing it. So if you don't replace them, it means that you are heading towards dehydration, which is one of the most dangerous aspects of diarrhea. If you are beginning to lose these fluids, then it increases your rate of being at risk of losing your life. So you need to replace this fluid in bits, not necessarily drinking it in bulk, but you have to sip it alongside to help to replace the lost one. And with the diarrhea, you have a lot of causes. And if you don't tackle the underlying cause, if you're just drinking water, then you are doing nothing. Because it's not only food or contaminated food that causes diarrhea. If you have infection, which could be caused from contaminated food or water, some side effects or some medications also cause diarrhea. If you have some viral or parasitic infection, could also cause diarrhea. And also, we have something we call lactose intolerance. Those who are intolerant to, let's say, milk and then milk products. So they also have diarrhea. And we also have some surgical procedures that also poses you to diarrhea. So if you have diarrhea, you need to find the underlying cause of the diarrhea. Then if that is tackled, then when you add the nutrition aspect to it, then we are heading towards to
if you have somebody
results.
who's as stubborn as I am, and who insists on still eating dairy products, even though the lactose intolerance is an issue. And let's say maybe, I mean, you made reference to 3 times a day, right? Like if it's up to 3 times a day, then you have diarrhea.
Yeah, that's the
right?
basic. If
That's
you
the
have
basic.
more than
that.
So
Let's say I run once, twice, and it's done. You know, how would you describe that? Where would you place that situation?
Yeah, so if you run, if it's 2 times, we can't say that is diarrhea.
Okay.
It has to be more than 3 times. And it could also be like an allergic reaction to something. If it doesn't affect your daily activities, we don't really consider that as diarrhea. However, we already encourage that you take enough fluids, at least 8 glasses of water in a day, 4 to 6 sachets of water in a day. And so if you have that and you're already hydrating yourself, we wouldn't consider. But if it's more than 3 times, and not only in the day, but it's persistent, subsequent days, it's still continuous, and then you realize that no, this is getting out of hand. You realize sometimes during this season you sweat, some also vomit. You lose some of these minerals through this, because sodium and chloride and potassium are easily lost through sweating. Even through when you're vomiting, it's the stomach substance that's coming out, or when you eat. And so they also contain fluids and contains these minerals we're talking about. So during this season, if you have all of this at the same time, then we could also say you are having diarrhea.
So talk to us about prevention.
Exactly.
Okay, and then if you are not able to prevent and you get it, your first thing you should do, what are the protocols? So let's talk about prevention first. How do you prevent it?
Okay, so coming to prevention, we need to really look at our food, water. The water needs to be clean. We need to make sure that these are not contaminated. Make sure that we always warm our food. We shouldn't use too cold and too hot.
I eat cold food a lot.
You need to warm. If only it's not ice cream or anything that has to be taken cold, and it's a main meal that has other ingredients that can increase bacteria activity exactly.
Such
you
as
need to your soup, your stews, your rice. You need to warm them well before you take them. And if you have taken any medication, that it increases your risk of having this, or you realize after taking the medication you are having consistent watery stool, then you need to check that for your practitioner to look at the dose, or just change the medication. So with the prevention aspect, look at the cause, and then we tackle it from that. But when you are experiencing it, first thing is to just make sure that you hydrate yourself throughout the day. And because of the electrolytes, if you want to make homemade one, you can just add little salt and little sugar to the water. Let's say half teaspoon of sugar, and then 1/3 teaspoon of salt into 500 ml of water. Then you can take at a time throughout the day.
Like a homemade ORS.
Yes, a homemade ORS. If maybe at that point there's no access to get one, you can do that for the meantime. And then when it comes to the food as well, you need to take, now refined food comes in. You don't need to take food that are high in fiber, because it also worsens. Exactly. So you need to take the ones that has less fiber, white rice, bread, more of clear liquid foods. So that's where the juices come in. Watermelon juice, banana has less fiber, so you can take in banana smoothie. And with that, it also contains potassium, so it helps replace the potassium that you are losing. And also, if you get the diarrhea, you don't want to take drinks that are high in caffeine or caffeinated teas.
Okay.
All of these also irritates the bowel. Also fried foods or fatty foods, they also irritate the bowel. So we need to stay away from them from that period until the diarrhea is finally resolved.
Right,
Okay.
but are there instances that you can actually maybe take medication? Example, the most common one is people just enter the pharmacy. I do it. I just enter the pharmacy and look, I want Imodium. Give me Imodium. And everybody know Imodium is for diarrhea. Yeah, but are there instances that you go take that Imodium and it doesn't work? Because you actually said earlier on that it's important to find out the cause of your diarrhea. So is it possible to take Imodium? Say maybe I'm taking a particular kind of antibiotic and the antibiotics make me sick and I didn't know about it. And I took Imodium, but is it possible that the Imodium will just stop it at that point? And it will not happen again, even though I don't know the cause. Yeah.
We don't encourage self-medication in the first place. Even though you were once prescribed to get it and it worked for you, doesn't mean that with the second occurrence you just go ahead and get it. I wouldn't encourage that.
Right.
Let's start with the nutritional one. Then we get worse, then you have to move to the facility, health facility or hospital for them to prescribe the medication for you, because we don't encourage self-medication.
When we were kids, one of the things that I remember very, very well from my childhood is that my parents would take Fanta and Coke, they will mix a glass of Fanta and Coke, and then they'll put salt in it, and then you drink.
Oh, interesting. This is my first time hearing this.
So the idea, I think, is that, you know, people take Coke when they have running tummy, right? So there's supposed to be something about the Coke that helps.
I think the sugar, because it's, I made mention if you're even doing ORS, there's some amount of sugar that you add. So maybe the sugar there will do something. So with that,
they also add salt to it.
Wow.
Yeah, so you put salt in Coke.
It's like a flavored ORS.
Yeah, and then you drink. Because a child likes the Coke and Fanta.
Yeah. And it works.
It's an electrolyte.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what you're doing, is that you are replacing the lost electrolyte. So that was, you know, I'm sure people who are a little older will remember that these are days before ORS, the days before the official ORS came.
Exactly.
But I don't think we should continue with that practice because, you know, kids, if you use that as medication for them, it's good. You know, they'll tend to ask for more of those drinks. Yes. So
well, maybe
let's do more of the juices.
I mean,
let's do the normal ORS and then encourage them to take water, which is more
But I also heard that just plain water on its own isn't necessarily what you want to do if you have diarrhea.
Exactly.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I think it all boils down to the electrolytes that we are talking about. Even though the water itself is also needed, we also want the electrolytes. That's where we can also talk about coconut water, which also has electrolytes in the sodium, potassium, and other minerals in there. Yeah, so you can take water, but you need to fortify it with these minerals to help to replace the minerals at the same time, not only looking at the hydration aspect. So that's where that comes in, where you need not to just take only water, but just fortify the water with these minerals.
Last question on my mind. You know, I mean, Chris talked about the fact that when you're running, you should just go straight to the pharmacy, but get Imodium. You know, I used to do that. But then I learned in school that there are triggers. So if something is causing the diarrhea and it's an infection of sorts, right, that's causing the diarrhea, when you take the Imodium, you are saying, hello, infection, stay in a little while
that's
longer.
True.
Stay in a little while. Just make a comment on that.
Yeah, so I think you've even settled.
You just said it. You just said everything. I think you've just said everything because it actually makes sense. So that means basically it just stops the diarrhea, but there's nothing combating the infection, so it could get worse.
Exactly. So we need to tackle the underlying cause. And then, so you just have to see the right person, a practitioner or a dietitian. And then as we tackle the underlying cause, then we also add the nutritional aspects. I think that you will be fine.
I like I think what I've learned today is the refined foods You see, because
Plain
we,
meal,
we,
yeah.
we discourage refined foods on a normal.
We always,
Exactly.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But when you have diarrhea,
Yeah.
that's
You need
actually
it.
what's going to help you. So
Exactly.
white bread.
Yeah, exactly. And when she said white bread and
then
white rice, I'm like, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. But that means we have to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, just for that moment when the diarrhea is resolved,
And
then we're
you
back
go
to the normal.
All
Yeah.
right.
Right.
Esther, thank you. How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can get in touch with me on all my social media handles. Instagram, Opulent Dietitian. On YouTube, Opulent Dietitian. And also Zen Diet Consult, our website. So zendietconsult.com. Then you could just book an appointment.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
For having
much. Thank you.
All right, so we've been speaking with Esther Obeng Mensah on nutrition and diarrhea. Hope